Kara Whitmore thought she was signing a contract to save her sister's life, but she had no idea she was stepping into a world of betrayal, hidden bloodlines, and a billionaire's dangerous heart. Forced into marriage with the powerful Damian Sterling, Kara uncovered devastating secrets that tied their families together and tore them apart. As love and lies collided, she had to decide if she could trust the one man who could destroy her or save her. Where are you watching from? Tell us below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breathtaking stories you won't want to miss. The letter sat on the kitchen table, its heavy cream envelope mocking her with the embossed logo of Whitmore and Kane. Kara Whitmore stared at it like it might burst into flames if she touched it. She already knew whatever was inside wasn't good. Nothing official ever was. The clock on the microwave blinked. 2:17 a.m. She should have been sleeping, recovering from the endless hours she'd spent at Harborview Medical with Maya, but her heart hammered against her ribs as if sensing that life was about to split in two. Summoning every scrap of courage, Kara ripped the envelope open. Final demand. The words hit harder than she expected, stealing the breath right out of her lungs. Her mother, dead for barely 6 months, had left behind more than just memories and heartbreak. She'd left a debt of $40 million, owed directly to Sterling Enterprises. Her mind reeled. $40 million. She couldn't even scrape together rent for the bookstore most months. How in God's name had her mother hidden something this catastrophic? Fingers trembling, Kara fumbled for her phone, dialing the number scrawled in sharp black ink at the bottom of the notice. She didn't even care that it was the middle of the night. A woman answered almost immediately, her voice smooth and professional. "Miss Whitmore, Mr. Sterling has been expecting your call." Kara's heart stuttered. "Scheduled for what?" she managed to choke out. But the line went dead. By 9 the next morning, Kara found herself standing in front of a skyscraper that scraped at the dull gray sky. The letters Sterling Tower gleaming coldly above the entrance. Her thrifted blazer hung awkwardly on her frame, her scuffed boots squeaking against the marble as she approached the receptionist's desk. 15th floor, they're expecting you, the receptionist said, flashing a rehearsed smile. In the mirrored walls of the elevator, Kara barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Her honey-brown hair was yanked into a hasty ponytail. Dark circles etched permanent bruises under her hazel eyes. 25, and she looked like she was pushing 35. A door slid open with a soft ding, revealing a cavernous reception area drenched in chrome and glass. A woman in an immaculate suit approached. "Kara Whitmore? I'm Harper Lane, Mr. Sterling's assistant. Please follow me." Kara followed numbly, her heartbeat loud in her ears. At the end of a long hallway stood a conference room where a man waited by the window, hands clasped behind his back. Even before he turned, she knew who he was. Damian Sterling. Billionaire, corporate predator, a man whose name was whispered with equal parts awe and fear in every business magazine and news outlet. When he faced her, she was struck by how unreal he looked. Tall, precise, dangerous. His steel blue eyes were colder than the marble beneath her feet. "Miss Whitmore," he said, his voice smooth as silk and just as deadly. "Thank you for coming." "What is this about?" Kara asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. He gestured to a chair. "Your mother borrowed heavily from Sterling Enterprises over the last 3 years, $40 million to be exact, collateralized against all family assets." Kara staggered back a step. "That's not possible. I would have known." Damian slid a thick file across the table. "She kept it hidden. For your protection." She flipped through the documents with shaking hands. Hospital bills, wire transfers, signatures she recognized all too well. A crushing sense of betrayal settled in her chest. "I can't pay this," she whispered. "I'm aware," Damian said coolly, "which is why I'm offering an alternative." He produced a second document, its title in bold, Marital Contract Agreement. Kara's stomach twisted. "You're joking." "I never joke about business." His gaze was relentless. 5 years as my wife. In exchange, I forgive the debt. Maya receives the best medical care money can buy. Your bookstore stays yours." Kara shook her head, laughter bubbling up from a place of pure panic. I'm a broke bookstore owner. You're? She waved helplessly at his tailored suit and skyscraper empire. Why would you want this? You'll find I have my reasons, Damien said, his mouth curving in something that wasn't quite a smile. You have until tomorrow to decide. Your sister's future depends on it. And just like that, Kara's carefully constructed world shattered into pieces she wasn't sure she could ever put back together. Kara didn't sleep that night. She sat by Maya's hospital bed, listening to the soft whir of machines and the uneven pattern of her sister's breathing. The weight of the proposal crushed her, every possible future ending in ruin unless she did the unthinkable. Her mother had sacrificed everything to keep Maya alive. Could she do any less? At dawn, Kara made the call. 3 hours later, she stood once again in Sterling Tower. Only this time she wasn't trembling. She was furious. At the world, at her mother, at Damien Sterling most of all. He was already seated at the long conference table when she entered, his posture composed, every inch the untouchable billionaire. Harper Lane waited silently beside him, tablet in hand. I have conditions, Kara said before he could speak. Damien raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement in his icy eyes. I'm listening. Maya's medical care is guaranteed for life, not just 5 years. The bookstore stays in my name, regardless of what happens between us. And I want a separate account, enough money to live independently if I need to walk away. For the first time, something shifted behind Damien's mask. Approval, maybe, or surprise. You're planning your escape before you've even signed the contract, he murmured. I'm planning for contingencies, Kara shot back. You don't know me, Mr. Sterling. I don't know you. This entire situation is insane. He studied her for a long, tense moment before nodding once. Your conditions are acceptable. Harper will incorporate them into the final document. Kara almost sagged with relief, but she forced herself to stay upright, to meet his gaze unflinching. Good, she said tightly, because I'm not signing away my life without protections. You're smarter than I anticipated, Damien said, almost like it was a compliment. You'll need to be. Before Kara could ask what that meant, Harper slid a thick contract toward her, along with a pen. Kara's hands hovered over the document, heart hammering. This wasn't just a signature. It was the demolition of everything she thought her life would be. Then Damien did something that shook her more than any contract ever could. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, setting it in front of her with a soft thud. Kara hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside was an emerald pendant, deep green and catching the light like bottled fire. The delicate platinum chain gleamed against the dark velvet. This was my mother's, Damien said, his voice unexpectedly tight. It belongs in the family. Wear it. Before she could respond, he stepped behind her, lifting the necklace and fastening it around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin, igniting a jolt of electricity she despised herself for feeling. The pendant was heavier than she expected, resting just below her collarbone like a claim she hadn't agreed to yet. It has a tracking device, Damien added matter-of-factly, stepping back. For your protection. My family has enemies. Kara's hand flew to the pendant, heart lurching. You're tracking me? I protect what's mine, he said simply. Mine. The word curled around her ribs like a chain. She swallowed hard, glanced down at the contract, and forced herself to pick up the pen. Her hand shook, but she signed her name. Damien didn't smile. He simply extended his hand, sealing the deal with a firm, warm grip that sent another unwanted shiver up her spine. Welcome to the Sterling family, he said, his voice unreadable. Harper closed the contract and tucked it away. We'll proceed immediately with preparations. The ceremony is scheduled for next weekend. Kara's head jerked up. Next weekend? That's impossibly soon. It's non-negotiable, Damien said, rising to his full, imposing height. There are business interests that require the appearance of stability. You mean a wife, Kara said, bitterness creeping into her voice. I mean a partner, Damien corrected, his tone hardening. On paper, at least. He turned to leave without waiting for her response. Kara remained frozen in the cavernous, glass-walled room, feeling like a pawn shoved onto a chessboard she barely understood. As the elevator doors slid shut behind him, Kara pressed a trembling hand to the emerald at her throat and realized the truth. She had just bound herself to a man she neither trusted nor understood, and there was no going back. The wedding was everything Kara had feared, and more. St. Bartholomew's Cathedral in Manhattan glittered under 1,000 flashes from paparazzi cameras. Kara stood at the entrance, suffocated by layers of silk and tulle, the custom gown clinging too tightly against her ribs. Harper adjusted her veil one last time and gave a small nod. Showtime. Her heels clicked hollowly down the marble aisle toward Damian Sterling, who waited at the altar like a statue carved from frost and iron. His tailored black tuxedo was perfect. Every detail immaculate. So was his expression, cold, detached, utterly unreadable. Kara felt like an intruder in her own life. 600 strangers packed the pews, all elite, all powerful, none of whom cared about the scared girl beneath the designer gown. When she reached him, Damian extended his hand without hesitation, slipping a heavy platinum band onto her finger with mechanical precision. She echoed the action. Her own hands trembling, so badly, the ring almost slipped from her grasp. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the bishop intoned. Damian leaned down, brushed his lips against her cheek. A gesture so formal, it might as well have been a handshake. Then it was done. They were married, bound by ink, pressure, and survival. 6 hours later, their helicopter landed on the sprawling lawn of the Sterling estate in the Hamptons. The reception had blurred into a dizzying carousel of faces, flashes, and polite conversations. Kara had barely eaten, barely spoken. Every nerve hummed with exhaustion and dread. Inside, the house was a museum of wealth. Grand staircases, oil paintings, glistening chandeliers, but none of it felt like a home. "Your suite is in the East Wing," Damian said without ceremony, handing her a ring of keys. "This provides access to your rooms, the library, and the gardens. The rest of the house is off limits, unless you're with me." Kara accepted the keys, stunned. "I expected we'd share a room." Something flickered across Damian's face, something close to pain, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "That won't be necessary," he said flatly. He strode away without another word, leaving Kara standing alone beneath the chandelier's cold sparkle, feeling abandoned in a palace built from glass. Her suite was absurdly large, larger than her entire bookstore, with a massive 4-poster bed and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto the Atlantic. New designer clothes, selected by Harper, lined the walk-in closet. Jewelry cases gleamed on a marble vanity. It should have felt like a dream. Instead, it was a gilded cage. Kara tried to sleep, but the silence pressed against her chest like a weight. At 2 a.m., she gave up. Wrapping herself in a silk robe, she padded barefoot down endless corridors, following the faint scent of leather and old paper. The key labeled "Library" fit perfectly into an ornate door at the end of the hall. Inside, the library was breathtaking. 2 stories of shelves, rolling ladders, antique armchairs, and a massive stone fireplace. The air smelled of paper and smoke, familiar and comforting. But she wasn't alone. Damian sat slumped in a leather chair near the dying fire, a glass of amber liquid in one hand. A framed photograph lay on the table beside him. Kara froze. She should leave. She should turn around. But his head lifted at the sound of her footsteps, and their eyes met. "I thought you'd be asleep," he said, voice rougher than usual. "I couldn't," she admitted, inching into the room. "I didn't mean to intrude." "Stay," Damian said, nodding toward the chair across from him. In the dim light, he looked different, not the CEO who commanded boardrooms with a glance. Not the man who had forced her into marriage, just a man haunted and alone. "You're not what I expected," he said after a long silence, studying her. "Someone more polished?" Kara tried to joke, though her voice was brittle. "Someone less real," he said simply. He pushed the photograph toward her. It showed 2 young women laughing on a beach, arms around each other. One she recognized instantly, her mother, vibrant and alive. The other woman had Damian's steel blue eyes. "That's my mother," Damian said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And yours." They were sisters. Kara's world tilted. "No," she said hoarsely. "My mother was an only child." "She wasn't," Damian said, his gaze steady. "She changed her name, cut ties. She hid everything, including you." The fire crackled between them, throwing wild shadows across the walls. The truth was a storm, battering everything Kara thought she knew. And for the first time, she realized she hadn't just married a stranger. She had married blood. The revelation hung heavy between them, an invisible wall neither seemed ready to breach. Kara sat rigid, her hands clenching the silk robe around her like armor. Sisters, her mother and Damien's, which meant she and Damien were distant cousins, Damien said, as if reading her mind. Third cousins, it's legally insignificant. Legally insignificant. Emotionally catastrophic. Kara shook her head, trying to breathe through the rising panic. Why? Why the secrecy? Why the marriage? Damien leaned back in his chair, the firelight carving shadows into the sharp lines of his face. Because your mother asked me to. My mother arranged this? She demanded, incredulous. Damien nodded, his voice low. She came to me months before she died. She knew you and Maya would be vulnerable. She wanted protection, ironclad, unquestionable. Marriage was the surest way. Protection from what? Kara asked. Before he could answer, the library door swung open. A tall woman swept into the room, her designer heels clicking like gunshots against the hardwood. Platinum blonde hair, blood-red lips, an air of practiced cruelty. Everything about her screamed trouble. Sabrina Hale, Damien said, his voice going cold. Darling, Sabrina purred, casting Kara a dismissive glance. You're not going to introduce me to your cousin wife? Kara stiffened. So this was her, Damien's ex-fiancée. Sabrina crossed the room with predatory grace, offering a hand Kara had no intention of shaking. I was supposed to be Mrs. Sterling, you know? Until he threw me away like yesterday's news. Sabrina, Damien said sharply. Leave. Touchy, she murmured, smirking. I only came to offer my congratulations. After all, marrying your own blood is a bold move, even for you. Kara's fists tightened in her lap. Get out, she said through gritted teeth. Sabrina's smile sharpened. You think you're safe with him? You don't know the half of it. Ask him about Project Prometheus, about what he really wants from you. Before Kara could demand answers, Sabrina turned and sauntered out, the door banging shut behind her. For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Kara stared at Damien, her heart a fist in her throat. She's lying, he said quietly. Is she? Kara whispered. Because it feels like everyone in my life has been lying to me lately. Damien rose slowly, pacing toward the window. His reflection shimmered in the glass, a man made of ambition, secrets, and regrets. Project Prometheus is real, he admitted. It's a medical research program. Your blood carries something extraordinary. Antibodies that could revolutionize the treatment of autoimmune diseases. Kara's breath caught. That's why you married me, she said, the words hollow. Not at first, Damien said, turning to face her. At first, it was about protecting you, fulfilling your mother's request. But, his jaw tightened. Things changed. Changed how? She asked, voice cracking. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Kara staggered to her feet, the room spinning. She needed air, distance. Anything to escape the crashing weight of betrayal. She fled into the night, the silk robe billowing behind her like a ghost. The garden was a maze of moonlight and shadows, the Atlantic's roar crashing against the cliffs below. She barely registered the cold, the gravel biting into her bare feet. Somewhere behind her, she heard Damien call her name. She didn't stop. She collapsed onto a bench hidden beneath a gnarled oak, pressing her fists to her mouth to stifle a scream. Everything was a lie. Her mother's love, Damien's promises. Even her own blood was a commodity to be bought, sold, and exploited. Footsteps crunched through the gravel. A moment later, Damien stood before her, breathing hard. I never meant to hurt you, he said hoarsely. I was trying to save you. Save me? Kara choked out a laugh. By lying? By trapping me in a marriage built on secrets? His hands clenched at his sides. You have no idea what Victor Dane is capable of. What he's already done. The name sliced through her anger like a knife. Victor Dane, the man whose empire had nearly destroyed Maya's access to treatment, the man rumored to be circling Sterling Enterprises like a vulture. You think I care about your corporate wars? Kara hissed. I only care about my sister, and I care about you, Damien said. The words dragged from him like confessions from an unwilling soul. God help me. I care. Kara shook her head, tears burning her eyes. It's too late for that. She stood, stepping back from him, putting 1,000 invisible miles between them, even as they stood face to face. Because no matter what he said, the truth had already shattered whatever fragile trust had begun to form. And she wasn't sure it could ever be rebuilt. 3 days passed in a strained, aching blur. Damien threw himself into securing their assets, building walls against Victor Dane's looming threat. Kara buried herself in Maya's recovery, spending long hours at the hospital, pretending her heart wasn't cracked wide open. They lived in the same penthouse, but barely crossed paths, orbiting each other like distant planets on the verge of collision. Then one evening, Harper appeared at the hospital, her expression grim. Mr. Sterling was called to Tokyo. Emergency at the Asian branch, she said quietly. He left this for you. Harper pressed a sealed envelope into Kara's hand and walked away before she could ask anything else. Heart pounding, Kara tore it open. Trust no one except Harper and Logan. Stay inside. I'll explain everything when I return. D. Kara crumpled the note in her fist, fear slicing through her. She stayed in Maya's room until long after visiting hours, until the nurses gently urged her to rest. Back at the penthouse, the silence was suffocating. The city sprawled below her, glittering and vast, but all Kara could think about was how tiny she felt inside it. Unable to sleep, she wandered into Damien's office, the place she once avoided like a forbidden temple. The hidden door behind the bookcase stood slightly ajar, the faint scent of old paper curling from within. Inside, she found filing cabinets meticulously organized. One drawer was labeled Project Prometheus. Kara hesitated, then pulled it open. Inside were research reports, lab results, old letters. Most of it made little sense to her until she stumbled upon a personal file, her name on the tab. Blood tests dating back to her childhood, doctor's notes about her unique autoimmune resilience, notes penned in her mother's handwriting. You carry the cure, one scribbled margin read. A shiver worked through Kara's bones. Before she could process it, a voice broke the stillness. Looking for answers? She spun around to find Logan West standing in the doorway, arms crossed. I have a right to know, Kara said, lifting her chin. You do, Logan agreed, stepping inside. And you need to know one more thing. He pulled out his phone and showed her a live feed from the hospital. Security guards doubling patrols around Maya's floor. Victor Dane's people tried to breach the research wing today, Logan said grimly. They were looking for something or someone. Kara's stomach dropped. Maya? Logan nodded. She's safe, but it's only a matter of time before they try again. A plan formed in Kara's mind, dangerous and desperate. I'll draw him out. Logan stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Absolutely not. You said I carry the cure, Kara said fiercely. He wants me? Fine. Let him come. After a heated argument, Logan reluctantly agreed, but only with full surveillance. If Victor made a move, Everett security would be ready. The next morning, Kara sat alone at a small cafe near Central Park, wired with a hidden transmitter. Every cell in her body buzzed with fear as she waited. Victor arrived precisely on time. He was charming, polished, smiling like a shark. You're braver than I thought, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. I'm not here to chat, Kara said tightly. What do you want? Victor leaned in, lowering his voice. Your blood. Your DNA. With it, I can finish what your father started and claim what Sterling stole. My father? Kara's heart lurched. Victor smirked. Your father was developing the original version of Prometheus. Damien's father stole it, buried it, just like they buried the truth about your family. You're lying, Kara whispered, though doubt gnawed at her. Am I? Victor shrugged. Ask Damien. Oh wait, you can't, because he's been lying too. He reached across the table suddenly, seizing her wrist. Instantly, Logan and his team swarmed, tackling Victor to the ground. You'll regret this, Victor roared as they dragged him away. But Kara didn't hear him. She could barely breathe, because standing just beyond the chaos, fresh off an emergency flight, bloodied and exhausted but very much alive, was Damien. He pushed through the crowd, reaching her in seconds, his hands framing her face. Are you hurt? He rasped. No, she whispered, blinking back tears, but I need the truth. All of it. Damien's shoulders sagged. Come with me. Back in the penthouse, he opened a hidden drawer and handed her a stack of letters, correspondence between him and her mother spanning years. Protect her. She is the key. Not just to Prometheus, but to healing wounds you don't even see yet. Kara read until her vision blurred. It had never been about business. It had always been about love. Her mother's love. Damien's growing, reluctant, furious love. Kara looked up at him, the weight of betrayal lifting like a heavy stone. You married me to protect me, she said softly, not to use me. Damien crossed the room in 2 strides, sinking to one knee before her. I would marry you again, he said, voice breaking. 1,000 times. This time for love, not obligation. Tears spilled down Kara's cheeks as she pulled him to his feet and into her arms. Then let's start over, she whispered against his chest. No more secrets, he vowed. No more lies, she promised. And for the first time since the letter had arrived, Kara believed it was possible. That love, not blood, not contracts, not threats, could finally be enough. Sometimes life doesn't give us easy choices. Kara's journey teaches us that even when we are thrust into situations beyond our control, betrayal, fear, secrets, we still have the power to decide who we become in the face of them. She could have let bitterness consume her, let the weight of lies and betrayal harden her heart. Instead, she chose to fight for her sister, to demand the truth, and ultimately to choose love, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Story reminds us that real love isn't built on contracts, wealth, or obligation. It's built on trust, on sacrifice, on choosing each other even when it would be easier to walk away. It also shows that the strongest bonds aren't always the ones we are born into, but the ones we build through loyalty, forgiveness, and fierce, unwavering courage. In the end, Kara and Damien found their way to each other not by erasing the past, but by confronting it, healing it, and daring to imagine a future where love triumphed over fear. Remember, it's not the battles we face that define us, but how we choose to fight them. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories like this one. Your next favorite story is just one click away. And daring to imagine a future where love triumphs over fear. Remember, it's not the battles we face that define us, but how we choose to fight them. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories like this one. Your next favorite story is just one click away. Wow, that was a beautiful pride flag. How cool is that? How cool is that? How cool is that? How cool is that? Also, can we enjoy this? Can we enjoy the story more? Can we enjoy the story more? Can we enjoy the story more? Remember, it's not the battles we face that define us, but how we choose to fight them. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful emotional stories like this one. Your next favorite story is just one click away. Remember, it's not the battles we face that define us, but how we choose to fight them. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful emotional stories like this one.